Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Well, hello and welcome to you on a great Thursday, December 21, 2023, as the year 2023 limps to a close, and looming ahead is a year that I don't know anyone who isn't dreading. Seriously. Oh boy. I've taken to wishing people not a happy new year, but a tolerable new year. I mean, because you don't want to get, you can't set the bar too high. Not for next year, I don't think. Oh man. So today is the last show of this year. And I guess we'll do sort of a grab baggy, I'm sweeping up all the stuff that I don't want to carry into the next year that somehow has been lying around and not getting out. So I think we'll be from pillar to post today. I was just looking at a piece written by, I think, Oliver Morrison for WESA News, and he's talking about the U.S. Steel sale to the Japanese company Nippon. And the article it's a very good one. It's interesting about people reacting to it in various ways. He quotes a friend of mine, George DeBolt, who has lived in Homestead all his life, whose business is in Homestead, whose great-grandfather was one of the strikers in the Homestead strike, whose grandfather carted. I mean, I don't want to get into the whole history of that family but it's fascinating. And I mean, to this day, they hauled. They had trucks. Well, they had horses and things, and then they had trucks, and now they have buses. DeBolt Transportation. But he does tours of these sites of Pittsburgh's industrial past, historic past. And he points out, and I did not know this, but I'm going to make a point now to go look at it. In the parking lot behind the Lowe's store in Homestead, okay, there is a 12,000-pound press, steel press. It's 120 years old, and it was used, it says, to smash large steel ingots into sheets toward the end of the steel making process. And next to the press, there is a sign that says, many World War II battleships were outfitted with armor plate from this press, including the USS Missouri, the ship on which the Japanese signed the Articles of Surrender that ended the war. And George DeBolt suggests, how's that for irony? So, yeah, U.S. Steel and the relics and hulks of its once mighty self. That, as I was saying yesterday, I think, that the output of U.S. Steel was so astonishing that you have to figure that an incredible percentage of the older, huge buildings all over the world have skeletons made here in Pittsburgh. But that, yeah, so here was created the armor plate that then ended up building the USS Missouri, where the Japanese surrendered. And now they are going to own the company that made that steel. How about that for irony? Said George the Bold. Yeah, indeed. Just wanted to send that your way because I thought it was ironic as well. Good news. Well, I think we knew this guy. The anti-Semite ex-murderer SOB who sent me that email and a lot of other people, and then I, contacted the FBI during the trial of Robert Bowers, who, as you know, massacred 13 people at Tree of Life. And he was telling me that he intended to what the email was essentially threatening the jurors, that he was going to find out their identities. He was going to make clear that they would not know a moment's peace. Anyway, he did finally get snatched up in West Virginia. He's originally from Pittsburgh, from Squirrel Hill, in fact. His father was, maybe still is, a doctor. His name is Hardy Lloyd, and he got sentenced, finally. And the Attorney General himself, Merrick Garland, did make a statement about his sentencing, and it was at the high end, as they say, of the sentencing. But this guy has spent half his life in prison. He goes in and he comes out and he just starts up right again. Never misses a beat. Let me see if I can find boy, my internet's acting up. Okay, well, screw it. I think he's got 7.5 years. I had wanted to share Garland's statement, but anyway, that was good news. And I had thought he had already been sentenced, but in fact, he was sentenced yesterday. And I suppose, staying in that line of criminal activity and the courts, we should now be speaking about Donald Trump and the Supreme Court. But if you don't mind, I'd like to give that a rest just for a little bit. My head, and I'm sure yours could well be as well, my head's just spinning, reading commentary about whether or not this Colorado Supreme Court ruling is a good thing or a bad thing, ultimately. I mean, I think it's a correct decision, but what will happen as a result? And when you start reading people who understand the law and understand how complicating things can get when the law and politics collide, as they certainly do in the person of Donald Trump, that things can get really scary. And I was just thinking the other day, I mean, if Colorado does this, then what? And other states now are jumping on board and saying they're going to keep him off. I mean, we could end up with a kind of craziness where the ballots that Americans are voting on for the national office of the presidency are not the same state to state, and that can't be. I mean, ultimately, for a national office, it has to be the federal government, I would think, that would hold sway. So this thing is just going to be creating so many other cases and questions. It's endless. It's endless. And the one thing that I am aware of in my, not that I have a law degree or anything, that this current court, 3 of whose members, right, were appointed by the defendant. I mean, how do you get around that crap? And he didn't even appoint the 2 most horrific ones. So right there is your, there's 5 right there. Really good. But so many of these members of this current court have said in the past and have a judicial philosophy that is sometimes called originalist, right? Which strikes me as so bizarre that, it's whatever the founding fathers said at the time is what is meant, and these things should not be looked at with the lens of our present, but stay right there where the founding fathers were, the originalist. And people who understand originalism say that this puts the originalists on the court, this Colorado thing, in a really difficult position because the amendment, the 14th Amendment, is really very clear. It's short, it's simple, and an originalist would have to agree, given the verbiage in the amendment, that it looks as if Donald Trump, in fact, the court got it right, the Colorado court, Donald Trump is not eligible. So one piece I read said that, what the Colorado court and its decision has done to the Roberts Supreme Court is call the bluff of the originalists on the court. So they will be put in a position to choose between their purported legal philosophy and, in fact, their partisan political interests in holding up Trump's candidacy. And the piece I read, it was in the Atlantic, says that the Colorado ruling seems written with a consciously originalist interpretation, with an eye toward legitimizing its conclusions to the justices who will ultimately be compelled to deal with the case. I don't know. This is scary. This is scary because we're in a scary place now, in a terribly scary place. And we've been here before. where our election of the president ends up in the hands of the Supreme Court. And we know what happened last time. And in fact, Sandra Day O'Connor, who was on that court, has famously said after that she regretted her vote in that case. These are highly consequential stuff. I don't know. And I mean, I don't know. People with heavy-duty law degrees are, arguing it. Who am I? Believe me, I don't have a clue. Hey, happy solstice. It's today is the shortest day of the year, which is to say that tomorrow starts our long climb back into a little teeny bit more sunlight. In fact, the solstice will, if you're a stickler, it will occur at 10:27 p.m. tonight. And that is the point at which the sun, the noonday sun, whoever figures this stuff up, the noonday sun appears directly over the Tropic of Capricorn, which is the one that's south of the equator. And it's the southernmost point at which the sun can be seen straight overhead. I guess I don't. You know what? I don't understand this. And the reason we have, it is this whole thing about, the reason we have a solstice where the days, the amount of sunlight changes every day, is because the Earth, I don't know, is a little tipsy. We're sitting on a planet that just didn't stand it up straight. And the Earth doesn't orbit the sun completely upright. It tilts. It tilts by about 23 degrees, 23.5 degrees, which then results in each hemisphere receiving different amounts of sunlight throughout the year. So, and obviously in this month, the northern hemisphere where we sit is tilted away from the sun, hence winter. Meanwhile, in the southern hemisphere, they're happy because it's summer. And our time will come, just saying. But it is a solstice. There is what blows my mind is that since I can't comprehend any of this stuff, the guys who built Stonehenge and other prehistoric things where they clearly did, I guess, they didn't spend their time watching TV or sitting on their phones. So they maybe did have a lot more time to observe, right? Observe the natural world. It's something that we fail to do because we have such distractions at our fingertips. As I said, it's going to be jumping around today. I sort of was talking about this yesterday, but this is something that I want to share with you. And again, I'm not sure who wrote it. I think it was Catherine Cox Richardson. But then I could be lying to you. Hang on a minute. I have a caller, and so before I get off on another topic, let's let the caller in. Hey,
I
Lynn.
don't have a call. Hi.
Hi, it's Ed Wren,
Hi.
neighbor Ed.
Oh, hi, Ed.
Hi. So I thought I might be feeling too good about things, so I figured I'd get onto your show, which I always enjoy.
Thank you.
So a few things. One, just to let you know that one of my ancestors, I tell people that one of my ancestors built Stonehenge because his initials were carved into it. There was somebody with the first initial I and then Wren spelled the same way as me.
Really?
Yeah, how about that? So, the
Could
graffiti
be.
artist in the family.
Yeah,
so,
right. You had a graffiti artist, a Keith Haring of the Stone Age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as far as this, the Donald Trump getting off the ballot in Colorado is concerned, I don't want to get into the weeds about it, but I did hear someone say that it really doesn't have much to do with the general election right now. It just has to do with who the Republican nominee is going to be.
That's right. It's the primary.
I guess they have
the primary ballot.
They have to fight that out.
Right. And here's my sense. I mean, apparently those ballots have to be printed.
Very
this stuff's happening and there's very little time. So even if the court, it could well be the ballots will be printed. Now, I guess if they're printed now, given that Colorado ruling, I guess his name won't be on it.
Well, no, it will because they have to wait for the Supreme Court to decide one way or another,
so it will.
or not even, or just punt. The easiest thing for them to do is just to twiddle their thumbs until the deadline's passed.
Sure.
But anyway, other things I wanted to talk with you about. Well, one is Dean Phillips. He's, I guess Biden had enough integrity not to put himself on the New Hampshire ballot, but Dean Phillips will be on it. And, for
those who don't know, wait a minute. For those who don't know,
sure.
Dean Phillips is a congressman from Minnesota, right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
I think that's who he is. And he is challenging Joe Biden. He's a Democrat. He's challenging Joe Biden for the nomination. Not, of course, that he has a chance. I'm not quite clear why, but so he will be on the New Hampshire primary ballot. Joe Biden will not, because Biden is complying with the DNC, saying that New Hampshire's primary is that they're holding it on the wrong date. Is that what's happening? Good God,
that's what's happening. But I listened to a video of him, and the impression I get is that he really didn't want to run for president, but he says that Biden's polling numbers can't be denied, and so he decided to run, and he has nothing bad to say about Joe Biden. He says if other people want to run, that's fine with me. So anyway, we'll see what happens. And a lot of this depends on whether Joe Biden remains, healthy. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting.
There's everything. Everything seems so precarious. It is like we're walking on, up the edge of a precipice constantly with so many things. I was reading, and I know you were, you're no longer practicing MD, right? But you are a doctor. We're a doctor.
Right, yeah.
And I have read that, that stress, that the levels of stress that Americans are feeling, like just those of us who, pay attention to the news.
Right.
I mean, the chemical stuff going on in our bodies when we're under stress like that is not healthy. I mean, it can literally be harming our health.
Oh, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with heart attacks, et cetera, over the next year.
Yeah.
Although
I mean,
it's
Donald
not like
Trump
any other
is
year
killing
recently.
us.
It's been
Yeah.
much. I mean, the last few years have been pretty rough. Imagine that 2020 election, for goodness sake, man.
Yeah.
So,
we
I'll never
can't,
forget.
what? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll just never forget the joy I saw at the corner of Murray and Forbes when we learned that Pennsylvania went for Biden. Oh my goodness!
Oh, were you down there? People went nuts.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was so wonderful.
Oh God! No, we're in for. But see, we can't know the toll individually. Each one of us. This is harming us
Sure.
in a very personal way because our cortisol levels are not where they're supposed to be. They're off the charts. We're constantly feeling the fight or flight stuff. We're under that kind of stress.
Flight to Canada, right?
Right.
Anyway,
so we're just we're in trouble. Telling you. Okay. Well, thank you for the call.
Well, I have a couple of other things that I don't want to hog your show.
Okay. You want to throw one more in and then be gone.
All right. Well, one thing is we should be diverting a lot of this billions of dollars spent on climate change to more local initiatives. That's a long conversation. The other is when you get rid of gasoline-powered leaf blowers because they get the cortisol up and are extraordinarily polluting. So those are my inputs, and we could talk later about that. So.
Oh well, you don't have to listen.
Back to the show. No, of course not.
On board. Anybody who listens to my show knows how much I hate those leaf blowers. I just
well, let's talk later because some of us are trying to really do something to get them banned at the county level and maybe the city.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there are bans like that in
right, exactly.
Some cities. So we could do it. I'd love it.
We could.
Hey, thank you. Have a tolerable new year, Ed.
Oh well, thank you so much. The days will be getting longer, as you mentioned. So.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
Well, thanks, Lynn.
Bye. Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh man, dear God. Okay, so here's what I was going to share with you. Here's a scary thing. And I think it's something we know. And it's something is somebody there?
I'm still there, I guess. I can't figure out how to hang up and still listen. I'll just hang up.
Okay. Goodbye. Let me wait. Chris has sent something in. The Republicans who are supposed to be running against Trump have come out in support of him, saying the liberals don't like him and they're trying to remove him from the ballot. They have no spines. Yeah, even the ones who want to take him down do not jump on board this opportunity that the Colorado court has given them. It's mind-blowing. It really is. My concern, as I've said many times, is not so much Donald Trump himself, but all of the Americans who hang on his every word, and then those who, despite having witnessed his presidency and his post-presidency and all of his legal difficulties, would still vote for him simply because they want, I don't know what, lower taxes. They just hate Democrats. They don't give two hoots about democracy. They don't believe Trump will really do what Trump says he'll do. I don't know. But there's a substantial, terrifying number of Americans that will go to the polls in November and vote for this Hitler-loving gas bag. And the piece I read, which interested me so much because it's my concern, is about what's called low information voters. They've been around forever. Democracies, that's one of the negatives. You give people power through a vote, and then they exercise their vote, but they don't do the work to make sure their vote is informed. So they phone it in, essentially. But take low information voters and then add on to it the disinformation efforts from Fox News, Newsmax, Vladimir Putin, the Chinese, people, having fun on social media and Facebook. And this is such a huge challenge to democracy. And we know that this is such a consequential election. But she writes that for too many voters, the reality is nothing seems to matter to them. And she says, and I mean nothing. Donald Trump quotes Vladimir Putin approvingly and quotes Adolf Hitler, and even the Washington Post relegates the story to page 10. Joe Biden presides over an economic miracle, soft landing that almost no economist or pundit thought was possible. And what happens? His approval ratings drop. And you know how low they are? They're below Jimmy Carter's in the summer of 1980, when inflation was at more than 14% and American hostages were being held in Iran. And in fact, Jimmy Carter had higher ratings than Joe Biden. What does that tell you? It tells you that Americans are not paying attention. The political reaction of so many American voters seems completely detached from any reality and from anything that has happened over the past several years, or even the things that are happening right now. And so we're not in a recession, but people feel like we're in a recession. And you know what? That's what it is. People feel. They couldn't tell you why, but they feel. She says you can't solve imaginary recessions with real policies, just as you can't cure imaginary diseases with real medicine. So what we're seeing is kind of a political hypochondria or economic hypochondria, where even though we're told, no, you're fine, the economy is actually really better than it was 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and we say it just can't be true. I feel otherwise. Last month, Americans felt worse about the economy than Americans felt in April of 2009. Remember what was happening then? That was during the meltdown after 2008, the meltdown, the Great Recession. And you polled Americans then, they were more upbeat than we are now. So again, this detachment from reality. And the media, yes, have responsibility here. Because even if they cover the good news, inflation is down, unemployment is down, this is happening, things are not as bad as you think, they always do this, but they find a town somewhere that things aren't going so well. That's what they do. And Donald Trump's loving this disconnect. I mean, he pushes it from reality. He talks about, right? I mean, in his inaugural speech, didn't he talk about carnage in America, the collapse of America? And yet, just one more thing I want to point out. Today's New York Times, by the way, I quote, prices on many products are falling. Toys are almost 3% cheaper than last year. Sports equipment is down nearly 2%. Washing machines cost 12% less than 1 year ago. Eggs, 22% less. Forecasters say prices for products will keep falling next year. But ask a consumer. And then she points out that for all the hand-wringing, we're spending money. So people say things are too expensive, but they're spending their money. Very few Americans are spending less, no matter how much they carp about inflation. I mean, people survey this as people say that they're trading down because of cost pressures, but in fact, they're spending more than they ever have, even if you account for higher prices. They're spending not just on the necessities, but on fun stuff. And carping all the way. So if Americans are now stuck in this thing where nothing but their own feelings, no facts need intrude, only their own feelings matter, we're at great risk. Because, as she says, no democracy can long survive an electorate whose only guidance is emotion. Ain't that the truth? Okay, let's see. Where are we? Alexandra, Petrie, or Petrie, who the hell knows, is a columnist for the Washington Post, and she is funny as hell. She did a thing, and it's too long to share with you, and I'm not sure it would share in an audio way. What set her off was ProPublica reporting that soon after he was put on the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas complained to a congressman about how much he was getting paid. And the congressman recalls that he said, this job is just not worth doing for what they pay. And so, as we know, Clarence Thomas, the word went out that Clarence might get off the court. And so, wow, the oligarchs and the right-wingers who needed him on that court said, Clarence, calm down. We'll take care of you. So she does this whole column imagining if the Supreme Court did like what, let's say, like public TV or public radio does, and actively seeks donations so that the justices can thrive and pursue their dreams. And then she conjures what the pitch would be. There are only 9 jobs like this in the world, and they pay in just the low 6 figures. And that's why we are so grateful to our subscribers. It's your support that keeps our supermajority super, and happy justices rule. Whether you donate at the tote bag level or the Harlan Crow level, we appreciate you. And then she goes through some of the sponsorship tiers. It's just brilliant. If you give, I'll skip over the small bucks because if you give $500 a month, you pledge $500 a month, you get a bobblehead of John Roberts labeled "Just Calling Balls and Strikes." You also get a baseball cap that says 6-3. For $1,000 a month, the justices will put a special inside joke in the body text of a dissent just for you. $8,250 per month adds up to about $100,000 annually. You will send a child to school, specifically a justice's grandnephew. You don't get to pick the school, the justice does. Alternatively, you could sponsor the house of a justice's mother. For $15,000 a month, you will get Justice Sam Alito will ride on a private plane with you if the plane is already taking off and would have been going that direction anyway. Don't expect any special treatment. He is just there to be ballast for the plane. For $20,000 a month, you get all the lower tier perks plus a handwritten note from the justice saying thank you, and Ginny Thomas will text you. And for $5,000 more, Ginny Thomas will stop texting you. For $50,000 a month, the justice will consider you a close personal friend, will vacation on your yacht, will travel on your plane. The disclaimer at the bottom of this effort to raise funds for the poor justices, none of these sponsorship opportunities should be viewed as bribery. Obviously, this is different from bribes. This is just keeping the justices in the lifestyle they deserve, and we know you expect nothing in return. A bribe would be if the justice said, "Thank you for this money, which has influenced my decision-making." We know you are just happy to support the court, as the founders intended. And these are the clowns who are going to have the last word. Oh, God. Virginia Montanez, pit girl. I needn't, I hope, tell you who she is. She's big in town. Great writer, funny woman, smart cookie. She put a 10 best things that happened in Pittsburgh in 2023 together list. And, you know, lists, I don't like, I'll just pull a few things out for you because we do forget about some of the stuff that gave us joy. Since there's so much other stuff giving us dyspepsia. And she has Kutch comes home. And that, I agree. And they signed him to one more year, which I just love. I mean, even just for whatever. The Pirates are a joke. And not only did he come back, but he hit his 2000th career hit in a Pirates uniform.
Yeah. And she has at the bottom of this, Bob Nutting, call me so I can verbally abuse you. Taylor Swift breaks records and repairs. Do you know how much the economic impact of her two concerts? Record-breaking 145,000 plus fans descending on the, quoting Ginny, still stupidly named Acrisure Stadium. It's estimated that local spending around her two concerts was $46 million right into the local economy. And the downtown hotel occupancy jumped to 96%. 83% of the people who came to her concerts were from outside of Pittsburgh. And on top of that, she made a big donation to the food bank. This I didn't know. She said Kenny Pickett's car got stolen, and he had the playbook, the Steeler playbook, in the back seat. Well, yeah, he was at a car dealership, and he left his car and the playbook, and some guy jumped in and drove off with it. Now, what's funny about all this is that the guy who got in Pickett's car and drove off with the Steeler playbook got caught like almost immediately. And you know why? Because the idiot who took the car had just gotten out of his own car at the auto dealership, and he just jumped in Pickett's SUV with the playbook in the back seat, and he left his own car behind. Well, so the police, didn't have much of a problem locating this genius. Just a few of the things. Oh God. There is this. Well, here, let me do this. I'm sorry. I'm trying to sort of clean house here because this stuff is not going to age well into the next year. Just saying. For that matter, I don't think I'm going to age well into the next year. I love stuff like this because this has to do with health reporting, because we are and have been in my entire adult life jerked around by media in regard to what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing and what's good for us and what's bad for us. And, absolute musts and don't you dare eat that and all this stuff. And I once actually I was doing a piece, this is when I was on a TV reporter. I had cut out, because I was going to do a piece on this crap. And I cut out from USA Today a headline that say, fish oil is good for you. I had just cut it out because I thought, I put it in my little folder for when I do a piece on all of this stuff. And man, I'm so glad I did, because it wasn't that much longer than damn, there was a headline in USA Today, the same font, that said, fish oil is not so good for you. And my rant about this is, what the hell are we? Who are we supposed to believe? Which report? And what's it based on? And sometimes you find out it's based on one little study that was funded by the fish oil industry or the anti-fish oil industry or what the hell. And then there was one in the New York Times, is the one just last week.
For decades, experts have said not to eat dairy products. That low-fat dairy products are healthier. Recent research says, I don't think that's true. So there's this whole article about, give it up. You don't have to do the skim milk. Eat cheese, it says. I'm not kidding you. It says that, the government, the dietary guidelines say to always choose a fat-free or low-fat version of any dairy product. Because we know that full-fat dairy products are high in saturated fats, so they can, kill you dead. But then people start, I guess they keep doing research. Because in the article we find out that researchers followed 136,000 adults from 21 countries for 9 years. Now that sounds like a pretty good, sample. And they found that during this 9-year period with 136,000 people, those who consume 2 or more servings of dairy per day were 22% less likely to develop cardiovascular disease, 17% less likely to die than those who consume no dairy at all. Sorry for you lactose intolerant types. They lived longer having some dairy. Now, not talking about eating sticks of butter here, but. And then another huge analysis pooled the results from 16 studies involving more than 63,000 adults and across an average again of 9 years. I don't know what this 9-year thing is about. Those who had higher levels of dairy fat in their blood were 29% less likely than those who had less to develop diabetes. So the finding suggests that there may be a benefit to consuming dairy fat rather than avoiding it. And the reason yogurt and cheese are generally associated with some health benefits is because they're both fermented and they can supply good bacteria to your gut. Now, butter and cream do appear to raise blood cholesterol levels more than other sources of dairy fat. So just note that. But I'm telling you, I'm so sick of people, being terrorized, changing things. Oh, I can't eat that. I can't eat that. Based on whatever, the last scare article. I had an uncle who carried around scraps of paper, that were full of these kinds of things. He lived in a state of constant anxiety and terror. He would ask to inspect kitchens before he ate in the restaurant. Oh, God. Okay, let's end on a happy story. I couldn't believe the picture when I first saw it. I'm talking about that longhorn steer who was on the subway tracks. You had to have seen pictures or videos, right? How the hell? And they still say nobody knows how this animal got there. I mean, talking about, a juxtaposition. Excuse me, we have a longhorn, handsome fellow. He's trotting down the subway tracks and holding up what is, I guess, the third largest transit system in the country. Is that true? This is at Newark's Penn Station. Anyway, the guy who, upon hearing, I mean, most people upon hearing it just went crazy. I got, of course, exceedingly nervous for the animal because I thought they're going to kill it. Oh my God. And how terrified the animal must be. Anyway, it's a happy ending. One of the guys who heard about it turns out to be a retired trucker named Mike Stura. And darn if he doesn't live not that far away. And he heard about it, and he hooked up a livestock trailer to the back of his Ram pickup, and he called the New Jersey cops, and he said, I'm coming. I can help you. Just hang in there. And by the time he got there, the poor animal had gotten off the tracks and was in a fenced area, unfortunately, right near I think a meat packing plant, I think. So this guy helped. They did shoot him with a tranquilizer, and then they loaded him on his thing. And this guy who came to get him owns a wildlife sanctuary. So I'm looking at a picture of this beautiful animal, and man, did he hit the jackpot, because he's looking beautiful and standing in the sunlight at the Skylands Animal Sanctuary and Rescue after his capture last week. I just love it. This is the same guy who rescued him is a guy who rescued a cow who somehow leaped out of a truck bound for the slaughterhouse onto, again, New Jersey's Route 80 and took off, and he went and got her as well. He helped the cops get her. So, man. Turns out that the slaughterhouse where this poor soul probably was headed to would not have taken an animal that had escaped, because the odds are that animal would have been sedated to have been captured, and sedated animals can't be turned into meat because I guess there's too much sedation in them. This guy used to be a carnivore, but he isn't anymore. Not since 1995, when it says here his love for animals eclipsed his appetite. And then after somebody taught him about what cows endure on dairy farms, he devoted his life to sheltering runaway or abandoned livestock. And by the way, the New Jersey Transit is making money off this. They're selling little plush Ricardo the Bull plush toys, and so they're making money. Isn't that nice? And that everybody ended up living happily ever after. Well, not quite. Anyway, that's my happy news to end on this last show of the year. And I'll see you, January 2? That would be, yes. I think Monday is January 1. We will take that day off. So I'll see you January 2.
Okay, 2024. God help us. Have a Merry Christmas, those of you who have Christmases. And again, let's all hope for a tolerable new year in which we manage to begin saving and reclaiming our democracy. Yeah. See ya.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.